I'll just read the start of lesson 360, just to get us in the right frame of mind. Peace be to me, the Holy Son of God. Peace to my brother who is one with me. Let all the world be blessed with peace through us. Well, welcome, DJ. Nice to have you with us.
Nice to be here, Kevin.
So we'd just like to hear about your story, and personally I'd like to hear about people's childhood, if you don't mind going back to sort of how you're a bit of an upbringing. Got plenty of time, there's no hurry about anything you'd like to say, and just your own spiritual journey, what led you to A Course in Miracles, and any sort of experiences you want to relate to us along the way. We'll ask questions, or if somebody wants to ask a question, they can ask questions. Wait till after you're finished, or just ask questions anytime.
Well, my childhood was probably characterised by probably two main events that I can not necessarily remember clearly, but I know that they were there. And first was my father leaving, so that was my parents getting divorced, and my mum remarrying Kevin, oddly enough, strangely enough, who's since passed away as well. But I just had a dreadful relationship with him. I hated him with an absolute passion. And the other incident was school. I went to private school. I went to two private schools, and I guess you could say I was teased. I was teased mercilessly at school. I was sort of a bit of an outcast. So that aspect of my childhood, those two aspects were difficult. And plus there was a couple of things that happened at school. And much later, and I didn't understand this at the time, I didn't understand why this particular teacher that I'll explain to you in a sec, I didn't understand what he was referring to when he said this. It was only much later that I realised I'd buried these incidents so deeply that there was absolutely no way they were going to come out. And what I believe now is that the master teacher, he had to get them out somehow, and he saw it. And I thought he was talking about something else when he mentioned this to me one day. But years later, I suddenly understood.
You might just want to mention who the master teacher is to you, because not everyone would know anything about him, really.
Oh, okay. So no one. Oh, okay. Fair enough. Well, I'll say that in a second. I'll just finish this line of thought. He said this thing to me one day. He said, I'd be very surprised if you didn't hear this, especially given what's happened to you in your life. And I just thought he was talking about, my general difficult relationship with my stepfather and difficult times at school and what have you. But he was clearly pointing at these two incidences that had happened at school. And I only realised that much later. So, yeah, he saw it. So the master teacher is the teacher that I met when I went to Endeavour Academy. And him and probably Teddy are the two main largest characters in my life. Teddy's with us today. Master teacher has left his body. I think he left in 2008. And he was the main teacher at Endeavour Academy for years and years. And back in those days, Hector was the administrator. But now we call him Ted Poppy now, Teddy. So that was all in the past. So Teddy will know who I mean. Annie will know who I mean. But that's for you other guys there, yeah. Master teacher was the main teacher at Endeavour Academy. Okay, so still me. So after, I don't know, whatever, 10 years or 11 years after leaving school, I started to become interested in, what the hell's going on here? I was doing normal stuff like working and going out and, girlfriends, all that sort of thing. But there was something starting to happen or grow in me that was saying, what is this really all about? What am I doing here? And the first book that I ever got was, from memory, it was Your Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda. And I read that probably a dozen times. And then a friend of mine came around one day with this big thick green book. And it turned out to be the original Penguin edition of the Course in Miracles. And we exchanged books on that particular day. He took Autobiography of a Yogi, and I took A Course in Miracles, and I started reading it. And I remember saying to myself very, very distinctly, I have no idea what this book is talking about, right? I wonder if there's anywhere that teaches it. And it's almost as if that thought put a chain of things in motion, and I ended up at the academy and sitting in front of the master teacher, at which point, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I had probably no right to be there because I didn't have a clue. But bless his heart, you know, they let me stay. And I think I stayed for about a year. And then I went back to Byron Bay, where Teddy taught for a while, as Hector still. But I think I'd already made up my mind to leave. And there's a little bit more to the story. There's something that the master teacher told me back in Wisconsin that I've only ever shared with Annie, actually, and that was only a couple of weeks ago. But I might get into that a little bit later, yeah. So that brings us to now. I left Byron, came back to Sydney, and I've been in Sydney ever since. I think I'll leave it there. Yeah. That was probably more than I was going to say. I didn't even really think any of that would come out.
So DJ, so what happened? Like what happened in those times when you went from school to to the academy, and what sort of experiences did you have there?
And with the Course in Miracles, so I mean, even at the academy, what was presented to you, was there anything there that you really heard, or, how has your practice with the Course in Miracles, what was helpful for you? How did your practice and dedication and application of the principles start opening your mind?
Yeah, Annie, it's pretty distinct in my memory. It's distinct in my mind how that happened. I told you about a month or so ago. Something very specific happened, and it involved, well, I believe the master teacher was involved. I had a very powerful experience of, just, hang on. I think I mentioned it to you. I was in a lot of pain, and he'd already said to me years and years before at the academy, David, you're not ready for this. You have to go back out in the world and feel some more pain. And so I feel that's what happened. And then it got so bad at some point I had to just get down on my knees and scream out for help. And that's, I think I said to you, since that, and I really felt his presence. He was there. There's no other way to explain it. I know his energy. I know his energy. If I was standing next to Hector right now or Teddy, I'd know his energy. I just know their energy, And he was there. He was literally there. And I think I've mentioned to you, since that time, that's when I really started. I wasn't really doing anything except maybe a cursory read or a workbook lesson here and there, but there was no dedication. It wasn't until after that it dawned on me, you better get into this. This is not, you're not stuffing around anymore. You better get into this. And that's when it really started. That was a couple of years ago. That was only 2 years ago, Annie. And I think I said to you, I haven't been able to switch it off since then. Just sometimes it's just so intense. I have to get out of bed and start writing stuff down on a notepad just to get it out. It won't switch off. But I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining, because someone said to me at the academy, the only thing worse than going through your transformation is not going through it. And it's well and truly clearly obvious to me that mine has begun, and I'm grateful because I finally got an opportunity to get out of pain.
So yeah. DJ, when you say you can't turn it off. What exactly are you talking about? That's like, do you want to turn it off? It sounds like something that you're not particularly always happy with. Or so what is it that you can't turn off?
That's a good question.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay. Hi, Teddy.
So, how you doing? Listen, I understand.
You look really slim. You look very slender.
I lost 140 pounds.
Wow, it's amazing. You just
It's probably from not going through my transformation. So DJ, what I want to say is this. I remember we used to talk a lot. Like when you were in Australia and I was still here. You know, we'd have conversations and stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's like that all stopped, but something really shifted in you. Something shifted in you entirely. And all of a sudden, I can hear in everything you were writing and, you know, what you were putting on Facebook and stuff, that your mind had really straightened out.
Yeah.
That's all I could say. And you know, the interesting thing about it is that's happened with a couple people I know as well. And, you know, it's like I was friends with people, I talked to them, and all of a sudden something happened and they shifted and we stopped being the same types of friends, but their minds were definitely straightened out and they were in a whole new frame of reference. And I remember that happened with you. I mean, I remember suddenly the stuff you were writing was right on and everything was like you had shifted somehow. I've always wondered about that, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're talking about.
I think so. And that's given me, yeah, definitely something all of a sudden, and I'm not quite sure when it happened. It might have been after this sort of experience of dropping to my knees and genuinely screaming out for help. I mean, I said it to anyone that's listening, please help me. I've had enough. I don't know when this particular thing became obvious to me, but suddenly what I couldn't grasp, it just turned around like 180 degrees. And suddenly what I couldn't grasp suddenly made sense. And what I thought I knew before, it suddenly didn't make sense. It's kind of like, oh my God, I get it. This is so obvious now. And everything since then confirms this moment where it just went 180, Teddy. And it was something, now I remember reading one of your posts, and in there somewhere you said something happens to your mind where all of a sudden you turn around and you start asking it. You start questioning it. I remember posting something and you wrote back, who's asking the question? And this is when, and then you affirmated that's what D1 used to say a lot. Who's asking the question? And that's when it really started it had shifted before that, but that's when I began to be able to practice doing that. And that's what I've done ever since. And the workbook's alive. Whenever I read the text, I'm seeing it differently. And if there's something I still don't understand, I sit with it and I ask for help. And bang, wow, it's so fast now. You know, it doesn't take a week or two to drop back in. It just comes to me really quickly. And I think this has to do with that 180 degree shift. It's just amazing. I can't, like I said earlier, I can't switch it off.
Hey, old man, who wants to know? That's what you used to say. Well, who wants to know?
Right. Which is what you were saying in that post about questioning the ego. It's turning my attention back on it and saying, okay, well, who are you? Who's this that's living in this world? You know? Oh, it's such a difference.
DJ, you mentioned about like getting down on your knees and screaming out for help. Could you elaborate a bit on what, like, did you break a fingernail or did you do something a bit more serious?
It wasn't physical pain. It was mental torture, Kevin. I knew it was coming, but I hadn't got honest enough at that point. But that night turned everything around for me, and it was mental torture, emotional and mental torture. Nothing physical or anything. I didn't break a toenail. No, it was mental torture. There's no doubt about it. It was just, yeah, can't really describe it. It wasn't
Yeah, well, I
very
think with all of us that, all even the physical pain's mental torture as well. So, and we all had that sort of mental torture. So I was looking for sort of clues and what sort of things perhaps you're tortured about and how the breakthroughs came through.
Honestly, I don't know. I don't grasp how this process occurs. I just know that when I get honest and it gets too painful and I stop and I pray, or I have to say, I don't know what to do here. God, please help me. There's a fantastic line. What is it? It's towards the end of the text. It's something like, I do not know the thing I am, and so I do not know how to respond, and I will not use my own past learning as the light to guide me now. And then in the course, Jesus follows that with, and in this, you invite the Holy Spirit to help you, and that's all that you have to do, and that's all you can do. I just I get out of the way when I finally realise that I'm in the way again. I can't do this for myself. I need help. I have to ask for help, and I do, and I get it so quickly.
Now, DJ, could you give us any examples so we sort of get like what sort of anguish you might be going through, and then you might ask for help, and then how that help comes, like what sort of answer you get?
Yeah, absolutely. A very, very specific answer is whenever I get stuck, I'm believing in some way that there's a world outside of me, and that the cause of the problem is out there in the world somewhere. And it isn't until that gets to a point where it's so uncomfortable that I have to stop. I might grab the workbook and practice a workbook lesson, or a particular application of the workbook might occur to me, and I'll apply it to the situation that I believe is occurring outside of me. And it's always the same thing, Kevin. It's always a grievance in my mind, always. And the solution is a miracle, which I ask for, which I invite in the application of the workbook lesson. And just the other day, I was in a huff about something, and I absolutely believed it was another person, right? A person outside of me. The world is a real place, and where can you go from there? You can't go anywhere. And then it suddenly dawned on me: just practice a workbook lesson. It's not this person. It's a grievance in your mind. It's a false perception in your mind. So I practiced this workbook lesson, and 5 minutes later, I received this page-long confession from the person involved, who suddenly was telling me, the lies that had been told to me. So when that happens, there's no doubt it works. Miracles work. Yeah.
Okay, so you actually, as well as had a change inside yourself, you actually saw the change outside in the world. Someone coming back to you, admitting that they've done something. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Well, the perceived world, it's my world. It's my perception. That there's no actual world out there. It's my perception. The world that I think is out there is my own perception of a world. As I see him and I'm willing to change my mind, it has to change, because now I'm changing the cause, the effect will change automatically. And now that I'm sort of understanding this a little bit better, I see the examples of it, and I just can't deny it anymore. That's what's happening. When I change my mind, I'm changing the cause. The effect will change automatically. And time again now, Kevin, that's how it happens. So the workbook, like I said earlier, the workbook is coming alive for me, and I use it. I use it for all my problems. When a problem seems to be occurring, I use miracles. I don't try to solve things by conventional means, because that's going to keep me stuck in time, and it's not going to solve the problem anyway either. So for me, it has to be miraculous or not at all. Yeah.
Okay, so as soon as you recognise a problem now, you don't bother with anything else. You just go straight to the book or a lesson or something. Ask for help,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
you get your answer, and you see it, you see the change, and you feel the change.
Somehow it gets shown to me, but it doesn't always you don't always see it. Like at the beginning, Jesus says the miracle won't always have observable effects. Okay, so I just trust. I have faith enough to know that something's happening. I may not be able to see it, but it shifts somehow. But yeah, lately I've been getting concrete evidence, and quickly too, really quickly.
So when you're doing like the lessons for, like you said before, that if you don't always see the outside or whatever, the miracle, you have that trust and that faith. Does that sort of just bring you an inner peace while you're waiting for the answer?
Yeah. When I get the answer, I'm just so there's just gratitude. There's just nothing but gratitude. And I think I mentioned this to Annie a month or so ago, that I wasn't capable of any gratitude until this thing happened. But now it's like I get so many little signposts that I'm taken care of in this, and I'm practicing I'm doing what I need to do, and I feel myself in a place of gratitude. And if that's peace, maybe, but I call it gratitude. Wow. Yeah. I
have another question for you. Just like from when you first started this stuff, it's like that was a big change, because it was like a really important thing where you got on your knees and were screaming, whatever. But since then, did you notice that like the bigger things sort of stuck out and you asked for help with, but the smaller things used to let go? Now, do you notice that now that the smaller things are more obvious and that you?
Yes. I think what you might be saying is, as you clear the bigger stuff, the smaller hidden stuff begins to come up. Absolutely. It gets more subtle, but the grievance, it seems to me, I'm not an expert, but it seems to me the ego finds a way to make that grievance more subtle. But it can only mean that I'm clearing out the obvious stuff, so that whatever's deeper can begin to, make its way into conscious awareness. So it's the process, and I now know that it's working in me, and so I'm motivated more than ever. I'm more motivated than ever to do this and to practice it, and to make miracles the only way I deal with things. For me, there's no alternative. There's no alternative. Yeah.
I'll go on, Annie.
I was just going to ask too, DJ, like some of those bigger things, where the self-hatred was really projected onto you, say your stepfather.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, where it seems to be relationships, have they sort of been cleared out as part of that, and you now see him differently and things like that?
Absolutely. I have he's been dead for nearly 10 years, my stepfather. And I can remember right up until a couple of weeks before he died, I didn't even want to go and visit him, even when he was sick, and Mum was caring for him full time. She's a nurse. Well, her career was a nurse. But now it's like I literally cry at the gratitude I feel for that man. Yeah. Yeah, so it's completely shifted, completely different. Because I don't want to carry around hatred anymore. I just don't want to do it.
And I mean, I don't know about for you, but for me, it's like some of those that are like so intense like that, there's no way you can imagine ever feeling any differently about them in a certain way when that grip of intense hatred and self-hatred is still there.
Yeah, you can't see the way part. You can't see the way through. You need a miracle. That's the amazing thing about this book. It seems to have worked, even though, in spite of me, it seemed to have worked anyway, Annie. And that's the amazing thing about it. Whatever the kind of moment where I knew something had shifted, whatever that was, it seemed to have been working silently behind the scenes to get me to that point anyway. But now I'm just becoming consciously, I'm becoming consciously aware that there's something happening, whereas before I just didn't have any idea, no clue. But it was working anyway. It's amazing. What an amazing thing. Yeah, yeah.
So DJ, what was like typical day look like for you these days? Do you sort of wake up in the morning and you have some sort of a inner peace, or you actually say something in the morning to get your day started to be aware of this sort of stuff, or what do you do?
Yes, I generally follow the same pattern every day. That would be, I like to start with just today I will make no decisions by myself, which is basically the invitation to the Holy Spirit to be with me today, because my concept of decision is, the cause of pain, staying stuck in time and so on. And just I'll read something. I'll read a workbook lesson, or I'll read some text. I might have got, something's on my mind, and I might read from that section of the course. Like I read that thing earlier this morning about the world is full of miracles. I love that section. But then mostly, Kevin, it's about, after that, it's about just watching my mind and just waiting if there's a grievance or something like that, just stopping and being able to pay attention to it straight away and clearing it out. I don't just allow it to linger all day, because it just gets too painful. It just gets, and it's unnecessary, because I know what to do now. So that's my day. I just watch my mind. I make sure I'm vigilant for where I'm holding a grievance. Yeah.
Okay. So when you say you ask the Holy Spirit, you make no decisions by yourself, what do you do for breakfast?
I have 2 coffees, Kevin. Coffee is my breakfast, and then I'll sit down on the couch. Same thing every morning. I've been doing it for years, and I'll have my, I've got a few. There's my beaten up old Sparkly. That was the one that Teddy sent me years ago. I've got a new one as well that Dave Fair, a brother of ours, a dear friend, Dave sent me one. So I'm keeping that in reserve in case I'm ever called to stand up and teach. But I like my old beaten up one. Look, it's filthy. The pages are filthy, but I like it. It's falling to bits, but yeah.
So look, when I asked you, I was only joking about your breakfast, but throughout the day you have to make all decisions about different things. Do you sort of have a sense as you're doing stuff that you got someone with you all the time, or do you ask before you even do stuff, or you just start doing stuff and then get pulled up now and again, or a feeling like, I'll do something differently?
Usually what happens is I'll forget, and it takes if it's something small like going to the shop and buying some orange juice or whatever, some water, I'll just do that. I don't, I might jump on the push bike instead of jumping in the car or something like that. Those sorts of things I can still do on my own, but it's well, not really. That's not really the case, because Jesus says you can't make decisions on your own. You make them with the ego or with the Holy Spirit. But if it's something that's really, like, I feel is quite important, like if there's a relationship decision or I'm asking for help with that, then I'll stop and I'll ask the Holy Spirit for guidance.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I think this morning something happened with me. It was something really simple, like, I don't know, spilling something that I didn't really want to spill, and I got a bit annoyed about it. And I'm thinking, well, that sort of stuff. Do you have anything along those lines?
Do I give up those sorts of things?
Yeah, like little upsets like that, where you just get angry about, well, me might get angry, but I might get angry if I'm doing something and I'm trying to be quick, and then also make a big mess and it makes things worse, and I get frustrated and a bit angry about it, stuff like that, because that's the sort of things that you do on your own, like going to the shop and you push bike, but the chain might come off, you get a puncture, you run into the gutter or something like that, and it's like you can get annoyed at that sort of stuff. Do you do anything with that type of thing?
It boils down to what you said. If it's just a minor thing, it'll clear by itself, right? But I won't stand by and leave anything that I'm aware is a source of upset. And it doesn't really matter how minor or major it is. It's just like Jesus says, you'll quickly learn that even a slight twinge is a cover over intense rage. So it's a very, very pointed question. And I must admit, I have let little things go, but I do concentrate on what I call major things. It's something for me to look at, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm aware that the course, because I have trouble with that too, that the course says about little things and big things, there's no differences, and it just seems like there's such a big difference between them.
Yes. Well, that's what happens when you start practicing Jesus from the course, the pain threshold, it lowers as you start to use miracles to deal with your grievance, my grievance. Okay. The ego is a grievance, there's no two ways about it. It's a grievance thought system designed to blame it on the outside world. So, which it turns out not to be there because it's perceived. It's only being perceived in my mind. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Oh, yeah. It lowers, the pain threshold lowers. And so you become aware of what would previously you have been able to dismiss. You can't do that anymore because you're more sensitive to upsets.
Okay, Annie, are we going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so it reminds me of that little thing. It's like, when we're, Jesus says, our goal is the peace of God, and whatever it is, whether it seems to be a little thing, like it's always a sort of an idol I'm putting there. I want, I'm busy doing that. I want to get that done instead of really having peace. So I'm upset when I don't seem to be able to do that in the time frame I want to do it, or something seems to interrupt it. I'm actually, I'm making getting that thing happen, and when it, more than having peace. So it's like, all those thoughts are idols, whatever the thought is. Doesn't matter whether it's a relationship thought or it's getting the bathroom cleaned.
Yep.
Rather than having peace, it doesn't mean you don't don't clean the bathroom, but you see, making that more important than the peace.
Right. Absolutely. I've got if you don't mind, I'll share an example. The exact same thing got shown to me. I was recently, I bought a piece of land. I think I told you about it, Annie. And I'm trying to get an approval to build a house on this piece of land. And I've got all these plans going on in my head. I've written it down. I've sent the plans in. I've done this. I've organized everybody. And it's just not happening. It's not happening. And then I finally stopped and said, hey, you know what? Just give it up. Just let it be on God's timetable. It's not on mine. If I take over this, I'll screw it up every single time because I've asked for help. Then I turn around and think I can help myself. It doesn't make any sense to me anymore, but I do forget, Annie. Thank you for the reminder. So with that particular incident, I had to give it totally up. I just said, Holy Spirit, I don't even care if it never happens. I give it to you. And guess what? I start receiving phone calls. I start getting emails from people who are all of a sudden See, so it's my mind. As soon as I change my mind, the perceived world outside of me begins to change. Has to be my mind.
So Annie and Teddy, you know DJ better than the rest of us. Do you got anything you want to ask to pry a bit of information out of him?
What I want to say, I don't know, and I've said this the other day too. You know, first of all, the section about, you know, there's no grievance bigger, and there's no big or small grievance. They're all the same, and they all do the same thing. They all have the same activity, and the ego likes to, like, you know, make some bigger than others, and just because that's what it is, it's about degrees, aspects, and intervals, and there really are none. But I got to tell you something. I'm really, like, I'm in the middle of something myself, and I noticed, you know, for many years I used the energy of the revelation to override the need for forgiveness and to look at my own stuff. And you know, today I just got to the point where I can't do it anymore. So it's really sort of interesting to hear, to be in the room with DJ and hear him talking about this stuff, because it's almost as if I feel like a beginner again, and I need, you know, it's like I need the help, and to hear that the help is always there. You know, it's like I pick up the course and I'll read something from the course, and it's so direct. And my problem with the course is it's like I know it inside out and backward and forward. And it's almost like I know what it's going to say. And I use that to, like, think that I know something.
You know something amazing. Yeah. Amazing. And Annie, do you mind if I just jump in there and say, I was just thinking yesterday how grateful I am that, you know, even Teddy, who as Hector and Teddy, in my mind, he doesn't need to do this stuff, but then he does, and it's amazing. You know, I see his confession on Facebook, and I'm just so grateful. I think, my goodness, the honesty of this guy is amazing. He's outspoken, but he's always willing to put his hand up and say, well, I need some help. And it's just it's amazing teacher, you know, and I'm so grateful to you, Teddy. I feel you. I really do. I'm very, very grateful to you. Yeah. You've been a big part of what has happened to me. And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, I sort of do, because I mean, I remember stuff, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and I think about the old man, and like, I basically ran away from the academy because the old man screamed at me for an hour about printing up the wrong book.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, why did I do this? Why didn't I do what he wanted me to do? And, you know, people apologize to me for the old man. But at the same time, it's like lately with Claire Diane passing, there's such, like, we're all so sort of tied in. We're all sort of, like, you know, in this together. And really the strength of one is the strength of another when we're really, you know that we can't do this by our own strength. I mean, I can't do this by myself. And I don't know how to, and it's like I was in such a position where I don't know how to do it with anybody else either. You know, it's like I wind up trying to be the teacher, and I really need to be the learner and sit back and learn for a while and just give up, you know.
Yeah, give up. Yeah, amazing. It's such a fantastic lesson. Just give up. God's right there. He's going to help if I just get out of the way. I love it, Teddy. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Well, I'll remind you anytime you want reminding. Same thing is happening to me. I've got it. We had a laugh about this the last time we were on Messenger together. How you had a moment of being, Jesus touched you, and the love that comes from him is just so powerful that, and it's so non-judgmental. I think you said to me that you'd been a blubbering mess in the corner just earlier that day. And I thought, wow, you know, that happens to me sometimes. Wow, it's lovely. It's lovely to catch up with you today. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for DJ? You've got your opportunity now to get some help with your own life. how to do this.
That's hilarious. As if I can help someone with their life, but go ahead, please.
Well, I think you have been a help already, DJ. It's like it's always interesting to hear someone else's story about their process and what they do, which is always different to mine, unfortunately. I'm looking for my own pathway, but I've seemed to be managed to block myself pretty well. So it's really good to hear that, because I always feel too that's like it's the real desire to have it that'll get you there. Obviously, I'm not desiring it enough because I'm still fumbling around in the dark. So has anyone got any questions that they want to clear up or clarify or get some better understanding from DJ?
Actually, I want to speak to that for 1 second, Kevin. You can't be fumbling around in the dark, my friend, because you've got all this help. You've got the workbook. You've got Jesus. It's just, yeah, it's like Teddy said. It's just about surrendering and giving in, and the more you can, well, not even more. You just do it to the extent that you can manage at that point. You can't do more than you can manage at that moment. Holy Spirit, the whole point of the Holy Spirit is to make up for our unwillingness, our atone for our lack of willingness, which is always there. So you're not in the dark. No way, mate. Too much help. There's too much help available.
Yeah, I just got to let it in. Is that right?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, so DJ, I was just going to get you to sort of expound or extrapolate, I'm not sure what the right words are, just more about, like, you know, all the sort of, I guess, you know, when you're saying, you know, you kind of like, oh, you're writing all this stuff, is that sort of like you're getting downloads about stuff in a sense, like you're getting, you know, like you're tapping into that universal information or source, and you're just getting a lot of that sort of bringing you insights and stuff into all sorts of manner of things? Or yeah, if you can talk about that a little bit more.
What usually happens, Annie, is it'll be after an intense period of a lot of reading. I might be feeling the need to really read a particular section of the course. I've got it open today on in the Sparkly. I've got it open in chapter 28, where Jesus is talking about reversing effect and cause. And if there's something there that it's just gnawing away at me, and it's not quite coming in, I'll read and read and read, and then I'll know to stop. And then all of a sudden, maybe a week or so later, it just sort of comes back to me, and I'll be doing this speed writing, and I've got 2 foolscap pages worth of writing in a minute, and then I look at it and go, wow, it's come back to me in a way that I can understand it. Not just necessarily the way Jesus has put it in the course, but the way it's now appropriate to me. And it seems what's happening there is that somehow the teaching is now integrated into my own experience of me, and now it's useful to me. Now I can use it, and I think that's what that is about. It's some sort of integrating, yeah.
Right, so it comes back in a way that there's a lot of clarity that shines the light on what he's actually saying, and also how that's applicable in whatever situation.
Right.
Stuff. Like how perhaps you have got cause and effect upside down, you know, when you're looking at a certain situation, and shows you how to, how you need to reverse it. And
yes, and absolutely, it's much quicker, Annie. You know, if you start. One of the things, and going back to what Teddy said about a shift, one of the things that I did notice about the shift in me was all of a sudden I realized I've been putting error first. I've been putting error before truth. That was one of the mistakes I was making. So from that moment on, I began to make a conscious effort, a conscious choice to put truth before error. Then during the day, I had a basis for correction. I had something to fall back on, whereas before, with the error going before me, where could I go? I can't go anywhere. You literally cannot accept correction. You can't accept the atonement until it gets back here, until it gets back as you know, I'm the cause of the problem here. So yeah, that's I think that goes to what we're talking about. I'll have to read for a while, and then it comes back, and suddenly it makes sense to me. Now I can use it, and that's the process. Yeah, you got to understand that cause and effect relationship to be able to do this course. You have to. There's no way around it. Even being here in this world, you've got cause and effect in reverse. There's no other way to be here. Sorry, cause and effect apart and in reverse. There's no other way to get into this place. But now there's this amazing teaching that's helping us to reverse that. But the first thing is, let us return the dream unto the dreamer, who perceives the dream as separate from himself. It's all in there, and it's so obvious once you have that initial shift that Teddy spoke about, that he noticed in me. It's like, oh my goodness, I understand this stuff now. I couldn't understand it before. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
So DJ, when you say put truth before error, could you just expand a little bit more on that? You may have just already said it, and I didn't hear it very well because I'm still fumbling in the dark. But, you know, just yeah, could you expand on that truth before error stuff? So what happened? Let's say just a normal typical day. How do you do that?
Well, it's okay. So so error is me. It's the error is my way of seeing. It's my way of seeing myself, and therefore, by extension, it's the way that I see the world. But once you realize that you're the error, right? The world is not really, it's not really the issue anymore. You're still going to make mistakes and believe that the problem is outside of you, but you'll see them more quickly, right? Because what you're looking at no longer seems to be separate from you, right? It's a result of your own thinking. Now, because you've seen that at some point, you can keep the ball rolling in the right direction. That has to happen. But once it's rolling in the right direction, you just keep on practicing. You get a momentum, and you arrive at that point where you say, this is it, man. All I'm going to use is miracles from now on. That's it. I did that for a long time, but I also mixed going back to my old ways of dealing with things and yeah, basically using time to solve my problems. But once you start using miracles only, then you cut that whole sort of that gap where the ego operates, right? The gap where you forget that it's come from your mind. That's what the miracle is for. It shows you that you're doing it. It's your own mind that's doing that.
Annie, go.
Saves all that time that you would have gone along that path.
Right. Where nothing is happening. Nothing's happening. Nothing is happening in there, Annie. That's the amazing thing about it, right? That's where the forgetting occurs, because there's nothing in that gap that can help you, that keeps you remembering. That's what Jesus means by miracles. You have to replace the projection of the ego with miracles to show your mind that it is doing it to itself. Then you have the basis for a meaningful choice. Until then, it's just book reading. It's just concepts. But once it's happened once, it's guaranteed to keep on happening, and then you just get this momentum going. Yeah.
DJ, I'm going to steal a line from Julia Zamiro. If you could go back and say something to the young David who had a new stepfather or and being teased at school, was there something, some advice you'd be able to give to help?
Oh boy. Not really, mate, because
I didn't think so.
I don't think about it in those. I don't conceive of a past me anymore. Plus, and the other way to look at it is everything was perfect. Everything that happened was absolutely perfect. So no, I don't think I'd say anything to my past self. All I say to myself now is just stay present. It's all fine. It's all, everything's fine. Keep on practicing. Watch your mind. Stay vigilant. When you become aware of discomfort or upset in any form, deal with it. Don't manage it. Deal with it. Use a miracle. Stop what you're doing. Open that book. Ask for help. Get on your knees. Whatever you need to do. Help is available. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, I'm glad I asked the question, because I think that, like, when I'm going through stuff now, or any of us are going through things, it's like we need to remember that it's all perfect. It's not. There's nothing wrong. That this is our path, and this is what needs to happen in our life to get us on our journey. Is that what you agree with that?
Yeah, for it not to be perfect, there would have to be something that you compare it with. And what are you going to compare this moment with, right? If this moment is all that there is, okay. So you still need to be. You need to be literally. You need something to compare this moment to, for you to be able to conclude that it's not perfect. But if this moment is all that there is, it's not possible. That's where the practice leads you. It takes away the time. It takes away that time factor, right? Because you're using miracles to solve the problem. The ego wants you to solve your problems the old way. First of all, it wants you to see them outside of you where they can't be solved, right? They're outside of you, somewhere in the world or somewhere in your body even. That's when it gets personal. That's where the ego wants you to see the problem. And then it tells you it's going to take time to solve it. Of course it's going to take time, because it's outside of you. But when you apply miracles, the problem gets solved instantaneously, because I was the problem. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. And time begins to be undone, begins to sort of leave you thinking altogether, and you're able to be more present quite naturally. There's no effort. There's no effort once you've made the effort to use miracles. What an astonishing book this is. What an amazing book.
Your answer would have totally been the same as what I would give. It's like I used to hear someone say, oh, all that time, I could have saved myself in suffering. But the fact it's gone. The moment you've chosen that it never was anyway.
Right, it never even happened. Exactly. Why would I go back to something that never happened?
Exactly.
And
it's like the moment you've changed your mind, it's gone. So that time didn't exist.
Right. It's a difficult concept for a mind that's still sort of only operating in time. But because we've been practicing the Course in Miracles, practicing using miracles, you can't understand that anymore. I literally, and this is what goes back to what I said earlier to Teddy, all of a sudden I got this. Oh, I get it, right? But the other thing, operating in time, that's what no longer made sense to me. But I hadn't quite taken that step. But it's so obvious to me now. Someone will say something to me, and I'll go, well, hang on a second, why are you operating in time? Why don't you just solve it now? They look at you like you've got, two noses or something. They think you're the weirdest person. They're out, and I just don't know any other way to do it now, Annie. We're blessed. We're blessed. We found the way out. We're blessed.
Anyone else got any questions? Any, Teddy, anyone else? Make a comment? DJ, you got anything else you'd like to share with us?
Just like to say, you know, the gratitude is like, because we have all come together at some point and then we've sort of go away and we seem to be in our separate corners of the universe in a certain way, yet
Yes.
we're all learning this stuff, you know, and then it's really amazing because we come back at another point in time, seemingly a later point in time, and it's just incredible. Like, it's just wonderful, and you know, so much gratitude for just the witness to the miracle, you know, and the witness to the change of mind, and the working it if you work it. And
Yep, absolutely. That's right. And it sort of builds on itself. It builds its own momentum, Annie. So what was started out as a little willingness, now it's like, oh my goodness, this works. I found something that is going to work and get me out of pain. So it just, you want to do it more and more often, and then all of a sudden it hits you, hey, why not just do it all the, I don't want to use that word, but just do it, just make it your only solution. Make the miracle your only way of handling your life, dealing with your grievances and every aspect. Yeah. Then you're literally not giving the ego anywhere. Like, it doesn't even get a spot to come back in. It will, of course it does. It's
yeah.
a tricky little thing, but.
And as you say, it gets subtler and subtler how it comes into coerce and sort of.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
But I was going to ask you too, because I hear some people go, and it's almost like they sort of get guided to look at one particular area almost at a time, you know, for some people. And I was just wondering, you know, it's like they might go into undoing, you know, fear around finances or something like that, or they might undo, you know, be guided to look at a specific area like a particular relationship or something at some time. And I was just going to see whether you've been moved in that way at all with your undoing, because it does seem to happen differently with all of us, the way the undoing happens. Yeah, so if that makes sense to you, that question.
Yeah, it makes sense, because I've heard that there are teachers that are specifically advocating, you know, targeted healing. I don't have a lot of that. Doesn't sort of resonate with me.
So it hasn't
because
gone that
if
way.
I tried to do that, I'd probably just.
Yeah, so it hasn't sort of gone that way for you.
Sorry, say that again, Annie.
So it hasn't sort of gone that way.
No, not at all.
Yeah, okay.
When something's coming up, that's what gets dealt with. There's no targeting, because I wouldn't know what to do. I literally would not know. I wouldn't be able to say, let's target the financial aspect of my life. What? There's no different aspects of my life. It's just one great big, you know, one great big mistake that has to get corrected.
Yeah, I've just, for some people I know that's the sort of way. It's almost like they're brought into and dealing with one aspect. I mean, it all gets corrected, but it's like certain things come up at a certain, where they seem to be looking at a particular thing for a moment. And
well, it may not.
Cleared out.
They may be looking at it. They may think they're looking at that, but it may be about something else.
Well, that's true too. I mean, that's, you know, true. Like the ideas that go into, that's the beauty, I think, of sometimes it seems to be in a specific area, but it's like a domino thing, and that, you know, where he says the generalization takes place.
Yes. Transfer of training, I think you're talking about.
Yeah, so what seems to get cleared in a relationship actually does include a lot of other aspects of your thinking, and when the bricks come down, it transfers to many areas.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not up to us to work out. That the miracle will take care of that. I'm just grateful that there's something that's it's finally working for me. So I don't get specific when something's coming up. That means, right, it's time to sit down and deal with this. And I've got the guidebook to do that. And I know it works. It works. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, DJ. Teddy, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the whole thing, whatever's going on for me. It's like it really is, back to the moment when I was, sitting on this rock and like everything was falling apart. And, Jesus said to me, you're doing this to yourself. And I said, all of it? And he said, all of it. And, it's one of those things. It's like at this moment, it's like it doesn't matter what area I look in, it all needs help. And trying to solve it in one particular area is not going to like give me the answer that I need at this moment in time. Because I need a relief from the entirety of the world that I made. And, I don't know how to do it without help. Because I just would keep doing the same thing in a different way without the shift in perception that shows me, what really needs to change is my mind, what I'm thinking of, and how I'm looking at it. Otherwise, everything just runs into the same thing. It's all just pain. It's coming at me from every direction. And there's no one thing I could pin on or one thing I could do. It's just like, like he said, you're doing this to yourself. And I said, all of it. And he said, all of it. And that was like a relief to see that I didn't have to deal with the individual aspects of what was going on.
Wow.
I just really had to give up and accept the help that was given to me, knowing that the help was going to free me from whatever it is. And I didn't even necessarily know what it is. It was just the ability to see that that's the way it is. And that's where I'm at right now. It's like everything is like impinging on me. And I keep on thinking I can't continue to go through space and time like this. How am I going to get through if I only had more money, or if I lived in a different place, or something else was going on? And it feels like that same moment again. And it's just like, no, I really need a change. I need a shift. I got to give it all up. And I don't know how, but I know something's got to change. I can't ask anybody to change. It's only my mind that needs to change. And I would have and the mind that's thinking that way, like I tried to write this the other day, the mind that's in error can't find an error to fix because it's all errant.
Wow.
The mind that is living in error, trying to find the error, is the error.
Yeah. Breaking it down is the error. Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's how it protects itself. That's how the ego protects itself and keeps itself going, by categorizing it. Oh, let's work on finances this week. Next week, Tony Robbins is in town. Let's go and see him, or whoever, right? Well, that's exactly how it does it. It keeps us busy with stuff that's, and meanwhile, somewhere else, it's causing pain. Yeah, so obvious now, but wow, beautifully put. Thanks. Beautifully put. Oh, so beautiful.
I wish I could remember it myself.
Well,
I'm teaching what I need to learn, as Jesus said.
Well, that's right. Always. Well, I appreciate you, Teddy. I've always I appreciate you. I look at your teachings online and I get something out of it, especially the workbook ones. Wow, that helped me enormously for.
Yeah, thank you.
When I needed it the most, yeah.
Well, thanks, DJ. My mind's trying to get me to sort of wanting to ask questions about stuff, but I sort of realise now it's not much point, because the questions I want to ask you they're like in the past, and you've sort of let go of the past, which is pretty amazing. Which is interesting for me, because when you said you spent a year at the academy, I'm thinking, I've got to find out about that.
No, you don't. You're fine where you are, mate. You just fine where you are. You don't need to go to an academy. You just keep practicing, mate. Just keep. If you keep practicing that workbook, You're literally training your mind to live in the miracle.
Yeah.
But at the same moment, you're training your mind to relinquish living in the idea of separation. It's only one or the other. There's no other options. Jesus says you always choose between truth and illusion, right?
Yep.
And every single little thing you do with that workbook, even if you just pick up the book one day and read a half a chapter or less, something shifts in your mind, because Jesus wrote that book in a particular way where even reading it, you're tuning into him. You're tuning into him. That's the way he wrote it. And he said, Helen, it made Helen uncomfortable for 7 years of her life, because his thinking is different, right? So when you read that book or do a workbook lesson, you're tuning into him, and that's what it's all about. You're learning you're training the mind to live miraculously, but it is simultaneous, because God placed the answer with the problem, and so they can't be separated by time. As soon as you practice a miracle, you're simultaneously not practicing separation. So keep going.
Thanks,
It
David.
does work, mate. Yeah.
Andy, I'll hand it over to you. Anything else you want to?
No, I'm really grateful. Thanks, DJ, for being willing to come on and, join with us in this and just express beautifully, so lucidly and simply, and just willingness. And thank you,
Oh, mate, it's been a joy, and it's been an absolute joy to see Teddy again.
Yeah, DJ, it's really good to see you again and hear you again. It's unbelievable. Thank you.
It's just lovely to see you. Yeah, thank you so much. You're my dear elder brother, and I love you. I love you. I really do. Yeah. And Kevin, thank you, dear friend. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, and I'm so grateful to have been here today.
Yeah, thanks, DJ.
So, yeah, any of you guys want to say anything? Alison, Penny, Lynn, David's iPad? Go ahead, Lynn.
Well, I'd love to also give my thanks. It was wonderful to know that I'm not alone in some of the dark times. Martin Luther King said, you can only see the stars in the darkness. So there's a point where it gets really dark, especially as you work through the Course in Miracles over the years. The ego starts to say, oh, she's really serious about this.
Right.
Right. And so you work a little bit harder instead of giving up.
And it turns it up even more.
So thank you so much for sharing what you went through. It made me feel less alone.
Wow. Well, that's great. Thank you for saying that. Thank you, dear lady. Thank you, dear one. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So anyone else before we go want to say anything? We usually probably just have just a little bit of quiet time before we end the meeting, if everyone wants to join in just a little quiet time of communion. So we'll just have 5-10 minutes communion, just to be quiet and join together in that silence and before we end the meeting. And thanks everyone for showing up.
Thanks again, David.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone.